Power doesn't always arrive with soldiers or flags. Sometimes it comes quietly, sealed inside contracts, encoded in molecules, buried beneath fields that look ordinary from the road. For 10,000 years, humans saved seeds. They passed life forward by instinct, not permission. But what happens when life itself becomes licensed? When growth requires approval? And the most valuable asset on Earth is no longer land, but DNA. To understand why Monsanto became one of the most feared and powerful companies in modern economic history, we have to zoom out beyond farms and fields, beyond food labels and supermarket aisles. Because this story is not really about agriculture. It's about ownership. Monsanto began as a chemical company, but by the late 20th century, it had transformed into something far more influential, a corporation that sat at the intersection of biology, law, and global finance. At its peak, Monsanto's genetically modified seeds were planted across hundreds of millions of acres worldwide, touching the food supply of billions of people, often invisibly. Corn, soy, cotton, canola. Not just crops, but systems. By the early 2010s, Monsanto controlled over 90% of genetically modified corn and soy planted in the United States. Its revenues climbed into the tens of billions. Its legal department became as important as its research labs, and its influence extended far beyond farmers into trade agreements, regulatory bodies, and international policy. But the real story wasn't written on balance sheets or seed bags. It was written in patents, in contracts, in courtrooms, because Monsanto didn't just sell products. It redesigned the rules of ownership, quietly shifting agriculture from a renewable tradition into a recurring revenue model. And once those rules were set, the consequences spread globally. This is where the surface narrative ends, and the deeper architecture of power begins. Every monopoly begins with an opening, an unguarded moment where necessity meets opportunity. In the early 1990s, agriculture was under pressure. The global population was rising. Farmland was finite. Farmers were being asked to produce more food with less land, fewer workers, and tighter margins. Into that anxiety stepped a promise that sounded like salvation: science. Monsanto saw what others didn't. The future of agriculture wouldn't be owned by whoever had the most land, but by whoever owned the instructions for life itself. Genetic modification offered something unprecedented. By altering the DNA of crops, Monsanto could engineer plants that resisted pests, survived herbicides, and delivered consistent yields. But the true breakthrough wasn't biological, it was legal. For the first time in history, a seed could be patented. That single decision rewrote agriculture's economic foundation. A seed was no longer a reusable input passed from harvest to harvest. It became proprietary software, licensed, restricted, and legally protected. Farmers who bought Monsanto seeds were required to sign technology stewardship agreements. Buried in legal language was a radical condition: no seed saving. What humans had done for 10 millennia was now a violation of intellectual property law. A seed planted once, a harvest collected once, then back to the seller. This wasn't just a product launch. It was a business model. And like all powerful architectures, it was invisible at first, quietly embedding dependency into the soil itself. The moment Monsanto's model proved profitable, the industry began to change around it. This was not growth by expansion. It was grown by enforcement. As genetically modified crops spread across North America in the late 1990s and early 2000s, Monsanto invested heavily, not just in laboratories but in lawyers. The patent only mattered if it could be defended, and Monsanto defended it aggressively. The company employed private investigators, what farmers would later call the seed police. They collected anonymous tips. They took soil samples. They monitored fields from the air. If patented DNA appeared in a farmer's crop without a license, a letter followed. Then a lawsuit. Between 1997 and 2018, Monsanto filed more than 140 patent infringement lawsuits against farmers in the United States and Canada. Most never reached trial. The legal cost alone was enough to force settlements. One case became infamous. Percy Schmeiser, a Canadian farmer, discovered Monsanto's genetically modified canola growing in his field, carried there by wind and passing trucks. Monsanto sued him anyway. In 2004, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that the presence of patented genes constituted infringement, regardless of intent. The precedent was clear. Control extended beyond consent. At the same time, Monsanto deepened its grip through vertical integration. The company introduced Roundup Ready crops, genetically engineered to survive Roundup, its flagship herbicide. The result was a closed loop. Use Monsanto seeds or your crops die. Use Monsanto chemicals or your weeds survive. By the mid-2000s, this pairing generated billions annually. Farmers weren't just buying seeds. They were subscribing to an ecosystem, one with no exit. Then came consolidation. In 2018, Bayer acquired Monsanto for $63 billion, not to change the system, but to absorb it. The name disappeared, the structure remained. And globally, the market narrowed. Today, just 4 corporations, Bayer Monsanto, Corteva, Syngenta, and BASF, control over 60% of the world's proprietary seed market. Not land, not water, but the code of life. This was no longer agriculture. It was biological intellectual property. The most powerful systems don't rely on force. They rely on design. Monsanto's genius wasn't simply in genetic engineering. It was in transforming uncertainty into dependency. Once seeds were patented, risk shifted downstream. Whether risk stayed with the farmer, debt stayed with the farmer, market volatility stayed with the farmer, but control stayed with the company. One of the most controversial concepts to emerge from this era was terminator technology, officially known as genetic use restriction technologies, GURTs. These were seeds engineered to become sterile after a single harvest. Plant once, grow once, never reuse. Public backlash was fierce, and the technology was never commercially released. But the message was unmistakable. Total biological control was technically possible. Even without terminator seeds, the economic outcome was similar. Annual seed prices increased dramatically. In some regions, corn seed prices more than doubled within a decade. Farmers paid more each year for the same land, the same labor, the same sun. The invisible engine of profit was lock-in. Switching costs became unbearable. Traditional seeds couldn't survive modern chemical regimes. Independent alternatives vanished through acquisition or litigation. The choice narrowed, not by accident but by architecture. This wasn't innovation driving efficiency. It was ownership driving obedience. And once the system matured, it ran almost automatically, harvesting value season after season, regardless of yield. Behind every statistic is a life shaped by it. For farmers, the transformation was subtle but profound. Independence gave way to compliance. Knowledge passed down through generations was replaced by instruction manuals and legal clauses. A farmer no longer decided what to plant, contracts did. Debt deepened, margins thinned, risk concentrated. But the impact didn't stop at the farm gate. Consumers inherited a food system optimized not for nutrition or resilience, but for return on investment. Genetic diversity narrowed. Local seed varieties disappeared. Entire regions began eating from the same genetic blueprint. Every meal became part of a supply chain, designed far from kitchens and communities. And yet, there are no simple villains here. Scientists believed they were increasing yields. Executives believed they were maximizing shareholder value. Governments believed they were ensuring food security. Systems don't require malice. They only require incentives. Monsanto didn't invent greed. It perfected a structure that rewarded it, quietly aligning biology, law, and capital into a single engine of control. And once built, such systems are hard to see until you're inside them. This story began with a seed and ends with a question. If corporations can own the code of life, who truly controls food? If access requires permission, what happens when permission is denied? And if profit governs biology, what does that mean for the future of humanity? Monsanto may no longer exist by name, but its model lives on, embedded in contracts, patents, and global supply chains. The story is not over. It's still being planted. If this video challenged how you think about food, power, and ownership, share your thoughts in the comments. Like the video if it expanded your perspective. And subscribe for more stories about the hidden systems shaping wealth, control, and the modern world. Because the most important forces are rarely visible until you learn where to look.